for being here. We do have 2 members absent, but we have 3, so we have a quorum here, and we can move forward. And hopefully one or both of those folks will be able to join us. So we're coming back to the table today after a conversation that was, I thought went really well in terms of, talking about some of the strategies we need to use, and also talking about some of the messaging that we have to use. And I appreciate everybody turning in responses to Kara and to Kara. Thank you to Kara, even though she's not on here right now, for making the arrangements both for this meeting and also relaying that information to us. So I did send over a spreadsheet to Mr. Walston, and Gladys and Amy were both copied on that. I'd like to go ahead and I'm going to pull up that spreadsheet so we can kind of, sort of talk around that to kick this off. I did get an update from Joe Britton. He submitted some information to me as well, so you'll see his info on here. Let me just get this screen share going here. Okay, so can everybody see that?
No.
Not yet.
Not yet. Let's see if it goes through here.
Now we can
try it one more time.
Oops,
oh, it did go. Of course I just did. Let me try that one more time. Sorry, guys.
Okay, now we can see it. Kate.
You can see it. Okay.
Yeah.
So, starting up at the top here, we've got, feedback from 5 of our members. I'm hoping that Lauren will also chime in on this, just so we get a good representative sample. But you can see that there's a lot of overlap here in terms of what each of us thinks is important. I think it goes without saying that we have to center this conversation around the budget. So I do see that, 3 out of the 5 here have budget listed as one of their main priorities. The whole conversation we're having is about that. So when you look at what the overlap is for particular subjects on the budget, the big ticket items and the big things that people feel are going to be important to be able to understand and explain to others: special education supports, which obviously takes up a big amount of our resources, EL and ESL supports, again, and these are things that even the state recognizes in its weight for the ECS formulas, that those are really areas of education where districts have to spend more money in order to provide the level of service that those students need. So I think that will help in terms of us being able to relay those costs and concerns to of folks in Danbury. The socio-emotional supports also came up, and that I understand that I looked at these and kind of took things that I thought were kind of overlapping and maybe just used a little bit of different language depending on who was putting that information together, and kind of condensed these topics a little bit. So if you feel that we need to handle the specifics, like that supporting piece of it, expand on that, we can certainly do that as we start to do this. DHS accreditation was another piece of this, and that was, how do we make sure that we keep the high school functional so that those diplomas our kids walk out with mean something. And then the last area was curricular supports, and that's speaking mostly to the things we have to purchase so that our kids' instruction process can continue. Things like the science kits, for example, that I know, they've been doing sort of a rolling process with that, where they're doing one grade at a time and purchasing science kits to be able to share with the kids. And that's sort of an ongoing process. So I think helping people understand that we can't just purchase all of the curricular materials we need, even though we would like to be able to do that, I think it is a very strong point to bring forward here. So I'm just wondering if anybody has any feedback on the main subjects here that we seem to be focusing on, or if they have a different perspective on this. I can't see everybody's faces, so don't wait for me to recognize you. Just jump in. Okay.
It's small type, just so you know, Kate.
Sorry?
The type is so small.
Oh, sorry, Dr. Sal. Let me see if I can zoom in here.
It's just me, you know.
You were the only one brave enough to mention it, though, so I will.
Now I will
give you the credit.
All right. let's see. Well, I mean, just from my perception, and this is not news to you, that item, the SEL and ESL, AL are very high priorities. Most of your funding that we have been getting has been asking us to focus on our L's and closing the gap. And as you know, that we have the highest numbers. And the social emotional, Kelly and the group have been doing a good job with it. But that's a very high priority. And in your current budget, we've added, workers and non-classroom personnel to help that. So I think those are two, not easy, but that resonates with everyone, in terms of that. And the curricular support, we have been very derelict only because we haven't had money to do it. I think it's nice to be able to set aside money, and Courtney did it for us last year, and Kara was so appreciative she was able. The problem was not having the money, trying to get people to work.
Yeah.
The pandemic, but that's a real need. And if you notice in your budget, one of the recommendations from Kara has been to extend her central office folks so they are present during the summer to do this work. And it's minor money. So we have a captive audience and leaders. So those are areas you already have started, and we're okay with that. So I think all of those things are that Amy mentioned, and of course the restorative practice. So I think everything there, I don't want to say easy talk, but they have a good narrative behind them.
I agree, Dr. Sal. And I just wanted to thank you and Ann Mead for coordinating a piece that Ann sent over to me, which was sort of to provide a contrast between what the need is and what we've specifically put into the budget to address that need. I think that's a really great way to frame the conversation. And we talked a little bit about this last meeting, but it's this idea of saying, we heard you, we hear the requests you're making and what you need from us, and this is, how we're trying to plan in response to that. All right, so I'm just going to scroll down here a little bit and talk a little bit about some of these things at the bottom here. This first section with the notes here, I think these are sort of like larger picture things that we're going to be hoping to communicate to the public. Core services are our priority, and that's always been behind the decision making as far as, this is the money that we have to deal with, and this is the number of students we have to deal with. So these are the number of teachers we need to have in the classroom. That's something that, you've emphasized many times over the time that I've been here, Dr. Sal. And I think that that's something that, kids see day in and day out. So obviously we're going to speak to that and speak to the enrollment increases that we've been experiencing in the last decade. That's a big, piece of being able to have these conversations with people. It's one thing to talk about Danbury growing and putting in new buildings and the kind of stuff that we've seen going on as far as development. It's another thing to talk about the actual infrastructure needs that we have, and specifically what that looks like in a school environment. The infrastructure we're talking about isn't just space, it's staff members. And we haven't really been able to keep pace with the growth that we've experienced, and specifically in the socio-emotional supports, which I know, Amy, you've brought that up a number of times at different board meetings. How are we going to provide those supports for students? And the counselors, which, we've had counselors come in and testify that their workload is just beyond what they can reasonably handle. So talking about that planning for growth piece of it, I think is a really important thing for board members to have a good handle on. Because it's not just, we're going to immediately implement the number of additional staff members that we need. We recognize that there's a process here to build up our staff. And that's something that Dr. Casimiro talked about as well. We can't do this all in one big push for the Career Academy. There has to be a gradual layering of these additional positions. One area that I think I'm certainly going to need some help on, and I'm not sure, who's comfortable sort of diving into this, but how's the budget going to impact taxes? If we were to look at, an increase to the overall city budget, what's that going to mean for taxpayers in Danbury?
Yeah. I started to work. Al did ask a question about that. Is Al here? Yeah, I see Al. And I put together something just very broad. And then, we didn't include it in the PowerPoint because it didn't tell kind of the story we would have wanted to have told at the time, but it is a decently significant impact on local taxpayers. Just a rough look at it initially when Al asked me to look at it, it's about a 6% increase, to raise $14 million based on the FY, like last year's assessed value, grand list assessed value, which would translate into roughly about a $220 bill, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Al, per, homeowner of a home valued at about $220K. But if there's anybody here that wants to work with me on that, I'm happy to provide some data and information, and we can figure out how to talk about that,
Thanks, Courtney. I think that's going to be a really, again, that's a piece that people are going to ask about and want to know about. And I think what we need to think about, as committee members, as board members, is how do we help folks understand that extra $220, or maybe that's going to be an extra $300 in their tax bill? What does that translate in terms of services that we can provide for our students? And even beyond that, what will those services do to propel our students? One thing that came back that we got feedback from the high school about was that the lack of counselors there providing support for college decision-making and scholarship opportunities, and just the kind of support that students need as they're choosing what they're going to do after high school. That's the value of the education that you're receiving at the local level. It's supposed to prepare you for the future. And yet when we're getting to that last stage of things where kids are really getting ready to go out into the world, able to provide that really critical support, especially for kids who maybe don't have that support at home and they're doing this on their own and trying to choose a path. So,
one of the things that you have going now forward, which I think is a real gem for us as a district, and is when they construct the structure, and Amy could probably speak to this as well, of the portrait of the graduate, it articulates exactly what you just said in terms of the product that we're going to produce and a pathway. But when you build this branding and our budget, you could use those, I think it's 5 areas of what we expect of the graduates when we break it down, and then have all of these as part of that. So there's a nexus to the budget and to the graduate, so that it's the 360. This is it's not episodic. And that stress, in thinking of that, if I were here, that's what I would start moving towards. And so then the story becomes the story of everything. It's not just about the money. It's about what's going to happen with the resources as we define as a product when you leave Danbury schools. That now becomes the narrative. So I think that might want something you guys might want to think about.
That's a good framework. I'm just going to make a note.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Dr. Sam.
Those 5 areas,
What?
those 5 areas kind of defines everything we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Agreed. Kevin, I know you know those 5 areas off the top of your head.
Yes, and I believe there are 6, but I don't. Give me a second and I'll put my hand on it.
I have to go over to my papers. I have to go look at my papers.
That's okay. Papers are good support.
I know critical thinking is one.
We got to
Yes.
Communication. Huh?
We got to make it into an acronym.
Yeah, that's right.
That'll do it.
We got to figure one out when we see them.
Yeah.
Kate?
Yes.
Well, Kevin's looking for that.
Oh, I have it.
Yeah.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
Okay. Sal, we keep mentioning about the $13 million budget, and I'm really concerned that we don't really, I'm concerned that we're asking for $13 million and we get $10 million in our back pocket with this CARES 2 money. I mean, we've got to be able to come up and you know, if you were talking to the city, say, how are we going to spend this $10 million? You know, we're not looking to get $13 million from you during a crisis period like this, when we have $10 million that we're going to offset on certain things. So we've got to be able to take that 10 million and say, what of the 10 million we can apply against the 13? Not that we're going to have a shortfall, but then come down with a legitimate number that we're asking the city for. Otherwise, I mean, you're not going to spend $10 million to buy masks and all the other stuff, dividers, unless you're going to put air conditioning in every school.
10 million, Rich, the 10 million. The 10 million were to go to pandemic mitigation strategies explicitly to try to attack achievement gaps. That's a big portion of it, along with some others. But just as you mentioned this today, I think I sent it to Kara in the group. We just got something from the State Department late this afternoon, about 4 o'clock, with a needs assessment. So we have to do the needs assessment to define the areas that you're talking about right now, you know, in terms of what's going to be appropriate, and then do what Courtney did last year, and grade it to the budget and the Alliance grant to make this a 360. But we have to go through the needs assessment as we begin to identify it.
But I think like what Sal's talking about, like I think, Rich, is I think one of the things we can say is we're looking at sustainability. We're not just looking at next year. If we don't invest in the students and we count on this funding that's one time, the taxpayers and everybody else is going to be that much worse off in 2 or 3 years. We're building a future investment for the community, but and I know that's just a bullet point and that's a broad statement, and I understand what you're saying, and I think we do need to go through that exercise that you suggested to look at what of this budget can be sustained and supported through other funding sources as we did last year. But I also think we really do have to think about the sustainability, because if the city doesn't make the right investment now, they're going to be that much worse off in 2 or 3 years, and I think we need to talk to people about that. Because this is what we've been doing every year, you know, saying, well, and we're in a hole, and the hole will get bigger. And it is about the sustainability, and it's about getting to the place we need to be when we open the academy and when we, you know, can realize some of the gains of the Portrait of a Graduate and things like that.
I understand that, but playing devil's advocate, you know, I'm not looking for a $10 million cliff to say that we use the $10 million, you know, against the budget, and then we have subsequent charges year after year. What I'm saying is that I firmly believe in the budget, there are one-time items in there that could be applied against the $10 million, and that with some gray areas, we can utilize that $10 million against something else to reduce the amount that we're asking the city for. Asking the city, I agree, this is our budget and we need it, but asking the city for $13 million now, they're going to laugh at us unless we're upfront with them and say, look, we're going to work with you. We've got this money. We're, you know, legally, we can apply it against here, so it's reducing the city's impact, and we're only asking you for X number of dollars. But this is our budget, and explain to them how we've applied it. I mean, I think we have to be upfront, and also with the board is to, you know, we can't continue to play hide and seek. It's like last year we were, you know, very creative with the braided funding, and year after year we get cut, and we go through the gyrations of utilizing the Alliance money and doing our other gimmicks, and people think that, you know, we're just fooling them because we've got an overstated budget. But I think the way times are now, rather than the city government just laughing us out of the office for $13 million, I think we've got to come up with a conscientious way to do the braiding this year and show them our work papers and say this is what we need.
So Courtney, can I ask a quick question about the ESSER 2 funds? Because I think this is what Rich is driving at. And I understand this is supposed to specifically be used to deal with pandemic-related achievement issues. But is it specific to only curriculum and to that kind of work, or is it also can it be used for like capital improvements and that kind of thing?
Yeah.
So, you know, looking at like the high school.
Yeah, there's a broad rate. There's like 5, pillars to it, and one of which does include newly, it wasn't in ESSER 1, but HVAC and, safety enhancements, which could encompass a lot of things that we would do there. It's an option. I would just be a little careful because we haven't decided yet what we wanted to prioritize to do with that funding. But I would just also say that, yes, a lot of the new items that we put forward could conceivably be, utilized under that grant funding source. Do you know what I mean? So the counseling is appropriate.
But those are salaries, right? Those are like operating costs. So I'm not clear as to whether or not that would be covered by the ESSER 2 stuff.
It could be if you utilized a strategy where you rolled it into Alliance, which is why it's a little complicated because, right, the state is right now proposing freezing our Alliance funding for the 2 years. And then it would go back to 2021 levels in 2024. So that would cause us a big problem. So yeah, there's like some moving target parts, and most of our investments this year were staffing. There's a big investment in curriculum, but a majority of our asks were related to staffing, right?
Yeah, and that's something that's going to be operating costs going forward. So regardless of what happens with the braided funding this year, we still have to account for that going forward. All right, and that's what I kind of wanted to get at. I don't want to get too far in the weeds on this stuff because I think our job here is a little bit broader than working out and hashing out the specifics, which I think, Rich, I'd certainly be open to having a conversation offline about that. And maybe we can speak with Courtney directly and set up something to just sort of go through that from a financial perspective. But, in terms of the work we have to do here, I think, we have, and it may be impacted by that conversation, but in the interest of moving forward, I think, we need to look at what our strategies are going to be. In narrowing down these 5 points that we have above here, the idea was to give everybody, some information about how to talk about these things in a way that will help whatever audience you happen to be in front of. So I think that, we should start, working on why these things are important and why we asked for them in the budget. That's one piece of this. I think the other piece is we need to sort of revisit, what we're looking to do with using different methods. Sterling was nice enough to send over some information, some videos for us to take a look at. I think that's going to be a good way to reach people, through social media with like shorter bits of information that they're receiving. We've also talked about, presenting to different groups. So you can see under the notes here, I'm starting a column of different groups that we could network with. I'd like to hear from everybody in the group about different groups that they could reach out to and make a presentation to. I'd like to build that list out and make sure that we're crossing off all these names. Dr. Mead, I think you probably have some information we could add here. So I'm not sure what the best way is. If we could share this document, I could put it up as a Google Doc, or maybe somebody else, maybe Kara could put it up as a Google Doc for us all to be able to access.
I think I have it already. I will add to it. Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
That would be great. I just think, we need to sort of pin down exactly the groups that we're looking to get in front of. We also talked about, putting together a one-pager or a visual representation of this stuff. We're sort of approaching this point in the committee where I think some of this work is going to have to be done outside of the actual meeting hours, so that, maybe 2 or 3 of us are going to partner with an administrative member and sort of come up with a concept to bring back to the group and introduce. And I'm wondering, if folks are amenable to participating in that way.
Absolutely.
No one wants to work with me, Kate.
I will work with you, Kevin.
Right.
And then you will get very tired of me very quickly.
Unless you get a haircut.
You're going to be surprised. He already put together some things. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay.
Hey, just so you know, Richard was able to get us to go and speak at a club. So maybe one of the things you could do is keep some kind of a, I don't want log about who we're going out to, just so that we know that who's going where. So
Yes, I think that's a great idea, and that's what I was going with making a list of these groups.
What was the name of the group you have us going to?
It was the men's club. They have about 170 members, they said.
Okay.
Is it Danbury specific, Rich, or under some designation?
I believe so. I'm not 100% sure. I just belong to the book club, but and I'm not sure whether it's Danbury. It takes into different towns.
Okay.
Their interest was in the high school civics and stuff like that. Basically civics and what programs are taught in the high school. It didn't sound like they were too pleased in what was being taught.
Because they don't know.
Exactly. You're exactly right. You're exactly right. And that's why I thought it was a great opportunity for you to set them straight.
Rich is my manager. What are you getting paid for this?
I think that brings up a point, though, Rich, which is that it's helpful for us to know, whoever is connected to whatever we speak with, it's helpful for us to know what's important to them, because that's going to change the tone of the pitch we're making.
No, you're right. And it's also, I often say when you talk to somebody, it's know your audience. So, in a particular audience, like we were talking earlier last week, it was for the elderly group, and focus points on how education, would benefit those in a community that doesn't have children, or a community where you've got senior citizens worry about tax increases, and what the budget and supporting education does for them.
Yeah.
But, and Courtney was nice enough to send me an article, which I thought, was really good, hit the nail on the head in terms of being able to identify a lot of the areas. But getting back to your 5 points, is it your intent that each of us take one of these subject matters and then be the person who does the presentation when we go out and do presentations?
I kind of have mixed feelings on it. In one way, Rich, I think that's a great way to do it, because it allows somebody to sort of take a deep dive into the material and really know it very well, and so be able to share it in that way. But I also think that these subjects are going to be broad enough that they may come up over the course of a meeting with any group. And it would be in our best interest, I think, as presenters, to be able to address any one of them, in a reasonable way. There might be maybe one area that you may feel more passionate about, and so that's the area that you kind of focus your attention on, because the groups you're working with, that's their interest level as well. But I do think being able to speak to each of these, because each one of them represents a substantial portion of the budget.
I'm sitting.
We just have to make sure, Kate, that we're all, when the individual is talking on the same, the same points as, that we're all on the same page is what I'm trying to say.
If I go out as an administrator, as a superintendent, I've got, I'm speaking for the district, and representing the board, right? I think we need to be mindful that as you get a narrative that, I hate to use this word, so don't take it in a pejorative way, the company line. I don't mean it to, be bad, but, it's not Sal's position on ELL and the type of support, but it's the district's focus on what we're doing as a district. That would be my only caution, because that could create misinformation.
Yes.
So we've got to figure a way how to, develop the narrative said before.
And I think we have to stress, and again, as Courtney mentioned, the fact that we've got to be able to sustain these budgets. It's that we can no longer affect the drastic cuts that we've been, getting in the past. And I keep saying that's eroded the foundation. At this point here, we've got to be able to sustain the particular budgets that we asked for in order to provide the ultimate outcome and achievements that we're looking to get from this. Again, we should be able to answer a question, what am I getting for my money? I go back to a return on investment. If I'm investing in higher property taxes, or I'm investing in voting for your budget, what am I getting for it? And part of it can be the conceptual part of the conversation of the building of the portrait of a graduate, that you have this particular individual that has been developed in Danbury. If you want to use that as the ultimate tier, as the achievement that we're looking to do. So I think as one of the questions we should be able to answer is, what's my return on investment in investing in the budget and supporting the budget?
Yeah, I think those are good points, Rich. Thank you. I'm sorry, I'm just filling in a few gaps here while we're talking to make sure I'm capturing some of this.
Kate, could I ask a question?
Of course, Gladys, go ahead.
As we all, this committee is going out talking to various groups, I would think as board members, it would be more beneficial to us because we all speak to different groups and we all speak at different ways. And I think.
Gladys, I'm so sorry. I lost your sound here.
Gladys, you're not on.
Gladys, I'm not hearing your sound. I'm sorry.
Okay, and because at some point, a couple of years ago, that sort of hit us in the face. So, I'm over here talking to this group and I say one thing, and then, then we come back and find out, well, okay, that's not how we should be doing this. Or that's not the right information. If you can't give someone or have the information that you really need, you just say that I will get back to you in some type of form. But I think if you can come up with a narrative, if that's the word you want to use, a script that's being handed out to all of us to present, I think it would be more beneficial as a group to go out and speak to these different groups. That's just me.
Yeah, no, I think that's very helpful, Gladys. And that sort of speaks to what we were talking about before, which is to, Dr. Sell, saying that we need to have sort of like a district focus, something that we're all, kind of supporting rather than trying to interpret for people. So in terms of like building out a narrative or some kind of structure by which to talk about these main subjects here. Do folks have any idea about how they would like to go about that work?
I'll make a recommendation. My recommendation would be to have each of the committee members select one of the main subject items, do what they feel is a write-up on it, review it with the others if it's approved, share it with the other committee members. So again, everybody should be attuned to the similar talking points. And if somebody who's dealing with social emotional also can speak to accreditation because he's already or she's already been scripted or briefed about what that person is going to say, so that we all have the same talking points. And I think by divvying up the main subjects, if this is what we agree we're going to focus on, it would make the task a lot shorter, and we can come back with some drafts of it so we can show it to the administration, because they're the ones who are the pros basically to give us the guidance on this.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Rich.
And then we can sort of take the show on the road to say, and then maybe somebody could set up a meeting with somebody and we do our first, it's like a Broadway show. You do it off Broadway.
Bigger, gentlest audience first, yes.
Yeah, before you go to the city council and hit Broadway for for big time.
Yeah.
But that might be easier, and it gets each of us involved in the project itself. And then with the notes or whatever we come up with, we just pass them on to other people so that there's a uniformity in there.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be helpful too in terms of developing these other avenues of reaching people. building that consistent messaging, hitting on the same points so that they're resonating. Because, and I don't know who's familiar with this, but there's like a concept of how many touches you have to have with a person in communication in order for them to start to either take interest in it or notice it. And so, I'm sort of approaching it from that standpoint. It's not just going to be us going and speaking to these groups. It's also going to be, they're seeing a video on social media that echoes some of the same information. They're getting a one-page document that, with an infographic on it that visually represents a lot of the same content, uses the same kind of language. Because I think part of our obstacle here is reaching out to the public and certainly the administration members, but many of us board members too, having been around this language for a long time, which is very academic and easy for us to sort of interpret, it's not like that for other people. And we kind of get lost in our own bubble because we're just so used to speaking that way. So go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, Kay, if I can interject, I just want to Mr. Ginelli's point that he was making earlier, I think I feel like we need to agree on who our constituency groups are that we want to get in front of. Mm-hmm. And then once we agree to those groups, Mr. Ginelli would say, I'd be very comfortable to join administration to go present with that group, right? Mm-hmm. So from the admin side, we would have a consistent voice on our side going out in front of the community. Mm-hmm. And then Mr. Ginelli would say, oh, I'll join Kevin and Courtney for that group. Ms. Cooper will say, I have inroads in this community, I'll join for this one. Amy would say, oh, I have this one, I know them up, and so they would be the people to get us in the door, make us feel welcomed and wanted in that community. And then I think you have the consistent voice on the admin side. And so if Mr. Ginelli feels comfortable in front of this group, right, and so it's Courtney and Mr. Ginelli and I were all, having this conversation, or Sal in another meeting, with Ms. Cooper and Courtney. And I feel like we need a consistent voice on admin side, and then it's the board that helps us open the door to get to the community. So, like maybe you guys are introducing us to the community. Maybe it's, hey, Dr. Pasquarella is here to speak to you. And I don't know, maybe Amy speaks, fluent Portuguese, and she opens the door, welcomes and invites us into the Portuguese community as an example. I mean, those are my thoughts anyway. And Kate, just so you know, Courtney and then one of my offsprings helped put together a graphic. And so we, based on in our last meeting, we talked about the idea of this one pager. And so I would like to show it to the team for a reaction. But I also want to say, and we based the one pager on the 5 priorities that we talked about. But I think we learned quickly, Courtney found an amazing kind of 4-pager, which kind of summed up a lot of things that we said we wanted to touch on. But the document was somewhat dense with a lot of info, it was like really packed in there. But I feel like as a team right here, we need to agree, maybe we do want to lead the community with a 1-pager, but it needs to be based on something a little bit longer, because I don't think we're going to be able to squeeze everything in that 1 page. And so I'll just give you an example, and I'll share, for some reactions tonight just to get us started.
And Kayla's amazing. She did a great little job with this. She's amazing.
So over here on the left-hand side, this is what it looks like in its entirety. And is this big enough for everyone to see?
Yeah.
Yep.
I put my glasses on, yeah.
All right. And so again, this is how the whole piece looks here, but I'm just going to go from top to the bottom. So Courtney, Ann, and I were just trying to think about just something to grab folks' attention. Mm-hmm. The text box, we just couldn't fit with so much in there. But here are the 5 priorities that we talked about. Mm-hmm. This actually could be hyperlinked to any PowerPoint we want. Right now, you'll see this will be Courtney's PowerPoint. However, if we want a PowerPoint to go on a road with, that 5 or 8 page PowerPoint could be right here in the middle. And then I'll go back here. And so then an explanation for each focus area will be in the bands underneath. And then the cost associated with each area would be here, right? And then this language, we may have to, massage the language a little bit, but we just wanted something in there for the team to look at. Mm-hmm. And
even
some of
the
this
big-
language
the
probably
headers,
looks
yeah.
familiar because this is some of the language that Courtney had on her PowerPoint. So I'll
You know,
just
that-
kind of scroll through.
I love this, the color coding here too.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Isn't that
fantastic.
cool? She's so talented. This was Kayla,
Yeah.
Kevin's daughter. She's so talented.
Oh, Kevin, my suggestion, Dr. Sal and Courtney is and Ann, is maybe to utilize this concept too and add it to our budget presentation. You know, not the numeric one, but the other. You know, the book where you've got the charts and the graphs. It is to put this in there too. This is a top page. This is very catchy.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
So you
each
mean
of the supporting things.
Somewhere in here, Mr. J? Somewhere in the PowerPoint itself?
Exactly.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
and
got
we
you.
can
Absolutely.
even like have each of those pieces of the pie start the section and make it as simple as we want. So that red piece, social emotional, and then we talk, you know, whatever, even if it's just one page. Like I think
Yeah.
that's a great idea. So
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, thematic, you know.
I like it.
So from another piece, and Courtney, I'm gonna flip over to the tab that you found
Yep, sure.
in that
sure.
other district.
Yeah.
So Ann, Courtney, and I, we spent a lot of time on this one, but this was I thought an amazing framework. And so you'll see, so there are 4 pages in total. Apparently there is other ways that we can show this. We can show it where it kind of flips pages. You just had to press the button. So instead of it being 4 consecutive pages, it would just be 1 page. Press a button and it will flip like this. So it doesn't look like it will continue to look like there's just one document. But in this presentation, they pretty much condensed Courtney's entire PowerPoint in 4 pages, and you'll get an idea what I mean. So this is the entire community, and then all of the FTEs, and a quick benefit or rationale why. And that's, not very different from some of the Courtney's presentations. We don't do this kind of breakdown here, but this is a comparison of districts and kind of where we are. So if we think something like that is important. They talk about a focus on facilities here. So we could also do something like this in a 4 or 5 pager.
In addition.
And then we can reiterate the priorities here if we wanted to.
Is this something that we could, now this is fantastic, we could leave this behind as a handout, so to say.
Yeah.
We could.
That's great. One of the things you, Kevin, and guys think about, Ann, is maybe put the hyperlinks to some of these videos that we're looking at to bring it alive. That would be a real fine, comprehensive way of involving the actual folks affected while we tell the story. I like the whole concept. Either one. I like the design and the story.
And if we brand it with the same colors and the same wording, like if it's whether the wording is invest in our community's future or whatever the wording is, if all of our various campaigns hit that language and the colors, then we could appeal and it will be a similar kind of thing, I think. And that would be good.
Yeah, that consistency will help.
So one of our parents in the community called right after Courtney's budget presentation that we had at our board meeting a couple of weeks ago. And he, as part of a strategy, he just thought it was important. And so I just want to give him credit. He thought it was important that we do something like this. Make sure we leave some type of call. I know we've also talked about this, but leave some type of call to action for the community. And so in this district, they did a really nice job. Let your voice be heard. And this is what they wanted their community to do. Go out. It's a little different language, but go out to town council, speak to the Board of Ed. And let your voice be heard. We want to hear from you at the board meeting and tell them what meeting to come to, in terms of how they can support.
I like that.
And then they also have the dates for the actual presentation. And so we just didn't have enough. We ran out of space, but we wanted to borrow that idea. And so we'll modify this a little bit if you like this idea and make this bigger. So the call to action, I think the call to action probably should have a similar. We might make this a little smaller. Make the entire thing a little smaller so this can be bigger because I think that's important for us.
Yeah.
So, Kate, it's not in the Google Doc, so I'll have to send everyone a hard copy if they want to see it. But for me anyway, I think I need feedback on how you'd like for us to proceed. And Ann, Courtney, and I, we can modify this, and while I have some expertise here, I could try to benefit from it.
I can show you how to
modify
convert it
this
to a
thing.
PDF, Kevin, so you could email it around.
Okay.
I didn't really.
Okay.
Yeah, I love it. This is the kind of thing that is exactly what I was trying to put my finger on last week. Something that's very visually appealing and breaks it down in a very direct way. Mm-hmm. That's I think what we need to, be putting in people's hands. Those and like you said, like having a more detailed breakdown of this stuff available for people who want that additional information.
Right.
Yeah.
But this is like the broad way to reach a bunch of people. I just want to go back to one thing you said, Kevin, which is talking about the different groups that we might be presenting. My original thought was, let's compile a list of everybody that we know. It sounds like, though, that maybe we would be better off figuring out like who we want to focus on and how we're going to try to reach those groups.
That's a good point. I like that as a strategy.
It's so effective to have people testify. I'm hoping that they do it as public. Do you know what I mean? It's so effective to have some strong community voices talking about the impact of this.
Kate, over the years, the place where we have the least amount of speaking to the critical issues is at the town meeting. We have the least, one or two get up, and we could talk to the PTO, you could talk to the to the Hispanic Center, but people just need to get up at that meeting in positive ways, not because accusing folks, where that goes, right? Yeah. But in positive ways of a need is where I've been very disappointed over the years. Where we should have representation better. And it should just be a board member or a teacher. It shouldn't, because they look at us as being, we have a pro for a reason. But other folks that we could get up and speak, that just can't, that's got to be, I think Kevin's point of having the focus of which
call to action.
That would be a high, that on my list over what I view, that's the place where we just don't get the message to them.
So over the last couple of weeks, we have seen, or last couple of months, many more families come out because they can do it virtually. They don't have to worry about childcare. They don't need to worry about having their families out late at night. And so I think it's our opportunity to capture them and give them a script to be able to come and speak for supporting the budget. I think having it at a time and a long enough period of time, not just the 30 minutes, would be beneficial to us. And as well as we have some newer groups in Danbury that have advocated for education in different ways in Danbury that we could ask now to speak on behalf of this budget, because it is going to, we share their values for their children.
I gotta go.
And this budget speaks to those values. And so I think we can get more folks on board with really good, effective, targeted outreach to the different groups.
And I was also wondering about whether or not we could get the council or the education committee of the council to be amenable to that kind of a meeting. Because
Courtney, they wouldn't do that. There's two places, as you know. Well, you didn't do it last year. I don't know what they're going to do. There's typically.
That's why I'm saying it. Yeah.
You have you have the whole convening of the entire group where it's presented, and then they're going to have a subcommittee, of about 6 members where that's what's going to happen, and that's like, and then they usually typically have one meeting and they make a recommendation to the whole group. So those are the two opportunities that we have. Oh, we used to have. I don't know what's going to happen this year.
Yeah, because I was concerned in the virtual world that unless we ask for it, they might continue to say, okay, we're going to just do that virtual approval of the budget. But maybe we say build that good community will and allow it to be, a Zoom if it's still considered unsafe at that point in April, who knows, but at least allow there to be some way of public participation that's not just like we do with letters writing in. If we ask for it, do you know what I mean? If it's going to be inevitable that it might be Because they haven't even scheduled it yet because of that reason, the lack of clarity around it.
Right.
And maybe, Sal, maybe you could ask Joe Cavo as to what his thoughts are, what his plans are for this year. And I like your presentation, Kevin, because I think at the subcommittee meeting, because it's going to be virtual, we can come up with a nice presentation on a presentation, as opposed to just going there and handing out the loose leaf book as we have in the past.
Yeah.
Using the concepts that we just talked about. But I'd like to go back to Ann for a minute and your point and Kevin's point about what groups we can't cover everybody, so maybe we select a number of groups of 5 groups. What groups do we feel we want to contact that we want to go out and educate them as to what we're doing and hopefully get their support? Or do you think it's better just to hit everybody? I say 5 because time's limitation, and to do it by video is another scheduling problem.
Yeah.
What do you think of the groups and the amount of groups?
Well, you got to go to the citywide PTO, I would think.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's that's already on the list of one of the people's. Yeah.
I added some others to the list too. So I
Okay.
don't know, Kate, if you want to pull the list up. I think it's important to go to the churches. Senior Citizen Center is closed, but they are publishing a newsletter.
Mhm.
So we could get something in that. I think we have to take the opportunity to be able to.
Can I just ask you something? Just my own understanding. Every time we do these things, we say senior citizen. All the years I've gone there, I've seen one senior citizen get up. And you know what? I'm not saying it's a waste of time. So please, I'm not trying to be discourteous. I just don't know the value of going to the seniors. I just don't.
Their center is closed right now, so they only put things in their newsletter to send out.
Yeah, no, I'm saying as a strategy.
Yeah, I don't think it, Dr. Sal, I hear what you're saying. I don't think it necessarily has any impact directly in that way. It's, from my perspective, it's just sort of a larger, inclusion of everybody in the community. That's a group that often gets neglected and cut out of conversations. So I think there's a benefit to trying to open that conversation up. But I don't expect to yield any actual results of people showing up at the meeting and, speaking in support of the education budget. So I don't think we should focus a lot of attention there, but I do think we should include that population of people.
I can see going to them to talk about the Speakers Bureau, about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But the budget idea is just, they're on fixed incomes.
Yeah, it's not going to go anywhere.
So that's all.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's
can you refresh this page? Because I added a whole bunch of other things.
I'm sorry, this is mine, and it might not. I may have made a copy, so maybe I should take mine down. Kate's might be more up to date.
I do not have it on Google Docs. I just have it on my spreadsheet.
That's what I had.
Yeah.
That's what I had posted. Did you want me to post something different, Ann? Because I was using the original one that Kate had shared.
I took the sheet that you shared and I added to the bottom of it. I can just read off the groups. LEAD, which is our Latinos for Danbury Education.
Mm-hmm.
Our playgroups, 21st Century Family Programs, POG Constituent Group, Danbury Women.
So wait, I'm sorry, Ann, is that one big thing? The playgroups is the 21st century?
No, the playgroups are separate from the 21st Century programs.
Thank you.
Yeah. Women's League of Danbury, Moms Club, social media groups. We've got some wonderful ones with presence on Facebook right now. Portuguese Center, and then I'd like to work with Ari Rosenberg through ARC. I've already spoken to him about some other programming, but then through that would be information distributed through the churches.
I heard Portuguese Center. I didn't hear what you said after that, Ann.
Yes.
What did you say after them?
Oh, ARC, Association.
Yeah.
Is that religious?
Yes.
Religious community.
Association of Religious
Association of Religious Community.
Community.
You said something else though, Ann, didn't you? 21st Century Playgroup, the Women's League, Portuguese Center. Was there one more?
Right, POG constituent group.
Okay.
I did put the Danbury Senior Center down. Danbury Women's League of Danbury. It's actually a New Fairfield Danbury group, but they're very active. Moms Club. We actually have 2 moms clubs here in Danbury. And then the social media groups.
Yeah, get them out there. That's what. Yep.
I mean, the other thing we can also do is to hold some open forums. If we'd like to spend some time, 1 or 2 nights or a Saturday morning and one night, inviting folks to come into an open meeting to learn about what we're proposing in the budget.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. And I think also just to educate them about how to be involved next year too,
Yes.
building the momentum for the next budget build. So including that as part of a topic, like this is about the future of your schools. It's not just about this year's budget. So if we can engage them earlier next year through focus groups and through, getting their connections this year, that would be really, really wonderful.
Correct.
And what about parents of special education kids? That we can tell them.
Absolutely. We Care here in town. Yeah, they would be another one we could. Yeah, We Care,
CAHR.
Yeah.
The parent leadership,
Yep, I've got
Yes, he's got that.
PLTI on there.
okay, PLTI.
Okay. So now, how do we draw down? I mean, this is a lot of groups, and if we had a lot of time, maybe throughout the course of the year, we can continue this project, not just during the budget season.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a year-long project. It's not just a one-time
Yeah.
and then you drop it. It's a constant project.
Set up some infrastructure.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an education process that's going to go on here, Rich. That I would hope we can extend beyond just the budget cycle, because a lot of this is a lot of information to throw at people all at once.
Sure.
So.
Business community. Are we capturing the business community through the POG group? I just know, that you were talking about engaging the business community in terms of the career academy and seeing the benefit to the Danbury community as a whole.
So like Chamber of Commerce kind of thing?
Chamber, yeah.
What do you think? I don't know. Maybe for future. I don't know for this go round, but.
I think for the future, the chamber, I don't think, but
Not now.
it's, of course, that
Maybe in tandem with like the development of the Career Academy as that starts to unfold.
Yeah.
Most of these groups have a digital newsletter, so at least it wouldn't be bad in getting the information in their hands and hopefully sending it out in their newsletter. If we don't do a presentation for their group, I think we need to do a multi-prong on this to get the information out. I'd also, love to see the Hamlet Hub or the News Times or the Tribuna to do another article in the budget too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a great idea.
Did I spell that right? No.
Yes.
And what's that? Isn't there a Portuguese newsletter as well? Is there some?
The Tribuna is three languages.
Oh, okay. Got it.
So do we just, this is a nice list and we could use this list as a starting point for, let's say, the duration of the year. But for right now, let's say in the short term to support the budget, do you want to select a number of these organizations that we could target our presentation to and try to set up meetings with?
Yes.
I think
I think the Tribune is a great one to start with. What else? I can hardly see some. Wait a second.
I mean, the Tribuna.
And I'm wondering if it makes the most sense for you to help us see them when folks are, because I'm assuming we're doing all of these virtually. And I don't know, I don't know who otherwise is going to be able to connect to be able to get them, you know, get to make them available for meetings. I don't mean to volunteer you, but I'm just.
No, that's all right. I mean, I look at 4 or 5 of them and I have like weekly contact with them or oversee some of the programming within them. So our 21st Centuries, our play groups, the Morris Street group, we have all, you know, citywide. I think that's an easy
Citywide, yeah.
to get the information out there. I think, you know, go back to that 2-prong approach.
How about the Danbury students and PLTI? I think Catherine's still in charge of PLTI,
Yes.
isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. They're on there.
Yeah, because I think they're good advocates for us, the PLTI. And
I feel like we had churches on the original document.
We did.
African American church, and then also our Brazilian church in town.
Okay, I put on ARC because Ari is willing to send out information to all the churches. We certainly could target the ones that we have presented at before.
Right, but we're hoping with ARC that they're going to go back and speak to them about this. I don't know if they're going to go back and speak to them about supporting our.
True. So I would put on the E. Emmanuel Church, New Hope.
Is that the one we went to, Ann?
Yes.
Emmanuel? Okay.
E. Emmanuel, Main Street in Danbury. And New Hope.
One Rebecca help us out.
Yeah.
But just a comment, ARC is not going to filter the information to all the African American church. It's more than just one African American church in Danbury. You know, if you want me to get you the name of them, you know, if you're going to talk to parents, those churches have parents in there, and it's about 4 more different African American churches in Danbury or more.
I think that's important for us.
Yeah, I think as many of those those institutions that we can have an audience with, the better.
So, Ms. Cooper, would it be best to ask for the education division of the NAACP or just the NAACP?
I would deal with the education committee of the NAACP.
Okay.
And this way, they can spread the information to those parents within their group.
Okay.
And community, and some of those people are community people.
Yeah. What about the Horde Foundation?
Is there a specific church in African American community we should target? I mean, I know there's more than one, so, and I know you have the list.
Well, you have Mount Pleasant AME Zion Church
On Rowan, right?
on Rowan Street. We have
Victory?
Victory Christian Center at Eden Drive.
And the church going up Stony Hill on the right-hand side.
We have another church on Liberty Street that's African American. There's another one on Main Street. I have to get the name. I know the young pastor.
Okay.
There's one more on William Street. I can't think of the name of it.
All right, all right. So then there are 3+.
And were you talking about Bethel, in Bethel?
Yeah, I'm trying to think the
Walnut Tree, Walnut Hill, yeah.
On the hill?
Walnut Hill, but there's another one right past Target on the right-hand side.
Yeah, I know. I can't think of the name of it.
Is that the name of the church?
No, but you've
you give me street names. Got it.
You've worked with him, Kevin, just recently. We went, when he was on Federal Road, we presented, and it was him and his wife that was running the church.
Is it Wes? It's Wes Johnson?
Oh, Wesley. Okay.
Yes.
Right?
I don't remember the name of the church though. I know Pastor Johnson, but I don't remember the name of the church.
I think
I
it's
hope
on
he's not
Federal Road.
listening.
I think it's on Federal Road.
It was, and he moved.
Oh,
I
okay.
think he's close on that Stony Hill now.
Okay.
I'd also, though, Ann, you probably have these connections, but I certainly could do the women's groups of Danbury, Moms Club.
Mm-hmm.
I've been involved with those before, but.
So, Kate, I know you had talked about, perhaps meeting weekly, just given the sense of urgency. How would you like? I mean, because Ann and I behind the scenes can start working on something here.
Sure.
Do you want us to come back maybe with, the first 5 or 6 and set up the first 5 or 6 and see how that plays with people's calendars. I know Amy was just offering some groups she could work with. Do we want to leave this meeting with, hey, this is who I would like to work with, and maybe we can work on those first as a priority for the committee?
I like that idea, Kevin. I'm a little bit nervous about getting ahead of the content that we're presenting. That's my only concern. I think we need to pin that up before we actually schedule, and maybe that's the wrong way to approach it, because obviously it's going to take a little bit of time and coordinating with these groups.
Right. And if
so
we
I
have
hear what you're saying.
Even if it gives us a couple of weeks, I would like to think we can, well, even a month from now, I mean, we have a couple of months before it has to be approved.
Yeah.
And I know we haven't really talked about, do we want momentum going into when the budget is going to be approved? I'm not sure what's the best way to approach this. Do we want all of the momentum closer to the end and have, So
part of that is like, I was thinking about that as you were bringing up the action item at the bottom of that graphic there, because I think there's some benefit from my position, from my, perspective, that if people are emailing the mayor and the city council members in advance of this actually being presented, so that they're aware that people are focused and paying attention on this information and are looking for what's going to happen when it's introduced. I think that kind of thing would help build some momentum going into public hearings and that kind of thing.
And what about like asking for a letter of support too, and sometimes like in action campaigns, I don't know if this qualifies, but like what I've seen before is we sometimes draft a letter that people can then sign. So it's easier, for them, and they can add text if they want to. If we get a ton of people to sign.
A template of some kind, yeah.
Yeah.
I like that idea, Courtney. I'm not sure, we'd have to obviously be careful about the wording there, but I think we should try to encourage people to communicate in that way, especially not knowing how the public hearing part of this is going to, wind up going. And, with awareness too, that in Danbury, you cannot submit public comments unless there's an agenda item specific to what you want to talk about. So between now and April, when the budget actually is released, there's not going to be an opportunity, at city council to have any kind of public presence.
And even to tell them too, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but like part of the mini campaign could be also to contact your state, because there's a process with the assembly and the Senate and the governor before adoption of the state budget. And,
and especially on that ECS funding piece that they're trying to freeze, I think that's another area where we could, bring folks in. Again, part of this is I don't want to overwhelm people with too much information. So, I think we're just going to have to evaluate that as we go forward and figure out what we think folks can process reasonably. In terms of the next meeting, we're about an hour and 15 into this one. And I think we're kind of winding down unless I'm misreading this situation. But I think, I'd like to talk about what our next steps are going to be. We left with an assignment last week. I'd like to leave with one this week. And my thought is that Amy and Rich, if you guys could each pick one of the main subjects that you would like to kind of delve into and understand, and then be able to present that to the rest of us. So develop talking points around whatever that area is.
Okay, I'll go with social emotional, of course.
All right. Okay. Rich, do you have a preference on category here?
Bring it back up again. They were
I can read them off to you.
That's all right.
Special education, ESL and EL supports, DHS accreditation, and curriculum supports.
Mm-hmm. Take the English language support.
Okay. Amy's going to take this one.
I can bring Augusto as my advocate.
Yeah.
Rich, I think if you're going to take that, when you talk to either Kara or Augusto, the new EL program is something that we should speak to because it's new, it's vibrant, and it's exciting. That would be something concrete.
Okay.
That's the EL Achieve, Dr. Sal?
Yes. Yeah, I would start with that. It's that at least I'll be thinking about it. And he's a good one to talk to. They got some good information.
And for me, with social emotional, who would I contact if I wanted to? Kelly? Okay, that's it.
Kelly she's organized a lot of the PD and she can kind of give you the structure.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
And Kate, you know what you can do is just assign the other two. You select one and assign the other two to Joe and the other ones. This way we can get started.
Yeah.
And maybe to the point of Ann and Kevin reaching out, it might be a bad idea for them to start now and between the contacts and setting up dates, maybe going out 2 or 3 weeks from now.
That's what Mr. Walston was suggesting.
Yeah, we'll during the period that we're doing our homework, they can set up the appointments for us. This way we don't start 3 weeks later and have to wait a further 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think that's right, Rich. And Kevin, thank you for making that point earlier.
May I just clarify one thing before we go? So with the talking points, is it something that's going to be more brief than Courtney's presentation? Is that the idea? Or is the idea to be able to explain and answer any question that someone might ask? That's really the goal, I think, Amy. But in terms of putting the information together that you're going to share with each of us, part of what I think we need to do is just look at some of the language that's being used. And I hate to harp on this point. I really feel strongly that we have to make this information accessible. Mm-hmm. And part of doing that is pulling out the language that is going to trip people up. If they don't understand what we're trying to explain to them, then we may as well not be standing in front of them.
Yeah, but grab to what grabs onto you, because what makes sense, what interests you is going to be interesting to other people.
Correct.
I think. And in your own words, yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. And if you have questions about like how to explain it fiscally, I could give you that backdrop. You know what I mean? If you want to know the bullet point, like 10 of it is on, 50% on personnel and whatever you have questions on about the fiscal piece that.
Oh, don't worry. You'll be hearing from me.
Dr. Mr. Walston, I just want to follow up with you guys on these groups here. I don't know if that's what you're going to bring up, Kevin, if you have something else. Sorry.
Well, I think logistically, I'm not understanding, and maybe I'm just missing something. So if Mr. Gianelli is focusing on one of those buckets from the wheel, and he goes out and, adopts one of these communities to go speak to, mm-hmm. Who's speaking to those other areas when he goes to speak to that group? He's
going to be speaking to them all, Kevin, but the idea is that each one of us board members is going to take one of those categories to be able to come back to the table here and explain it to the other board members.
Okay.
And to work up some information, condensed information, so that we're not all doing the same work.
So in that model, then there wouldn't be anyone from admin from the district accompanying you guys. Is that what I'm hearing?
No,
I still think it's a good idea to have an admin member.
I disagree. If we're going out speaking to a group, I think someone from administration should be along with that person. I really think to have a board member just go speak to 100 concerned men. You don't do it on your own. You take someone from administration to go with you. Or whoever, you're talking about budget, you take Courtney, not alone.
No, she's taking over.
Yeah, I think what Kate was saying was just putting it into more layman's terms, which is a beautiful thing. And then we circle it back to the big points, like with that nice color-coded pie chart that Kayla did. I love it.
Yeah, I think, part of this, Kevin, we're talking about this in a very conceptual way right now, but the idea is that the board members are going to come up with, these breakdowns for each of these categories. We're going to assemble information kind of based around that everybody can use when they go to do a presentation. But I like the idea of an administrative member being there to support that process. And I think it helps strengthen that connection directly to the schools. I mean, we're at the end of the day, the board members are still just elected citizens. We're not, educational experts. And I think having you guys there to, help provide, some of the stickier pieces of this is going to be helpful.
I think we just create the interest in the lead and the administration's there to back up the detail,
right,
and to go through the specifics.
Right.
In other words, create the enthusiasm, the excitement. We're sort of the front, the first act coming in before the main act, and then the administration goes in and does what they do.
Well, because you're going to get the stories. Like you've been talking about the stories. It would be so helpful if you get the stories, whether it's because you're talking to Kara or a student or Dan. You'll get those stories that support those pieces, right? And then maybe that'd be amazing.
Yeah. And I like Sal's idea about ultimately at some point connecting this to Portrait of a Graduate. And I think if there's a way that if we can sneak that concept into our talks now to get that word out to the community as well as we're trying to do this, it might be good. I don't know.
Yeah.
If Courtney, Kevin, and I can continue to work on these, the one pager and the graphic that Kayla did, that's what we're thinking. We're thinking very forward.
Yeah.
What does the district look like? What is it going to need? How are we building this?
How are we building the schools to where they need to be?
And the marketing campaign around that. Yeah.
Exactly. So the POG is so critical. It's critical mass to this whole project. So let us keep building out this graphic. And then if you like the other one too, we could also do that one. One is very techie where people can click on it, and other pieces linked to Courtney's PowerPoint can come up, where the other one would be more of a paper that people could read, whether we use it as a one-pager mailer or something like that for folks.
Yeah, and I can make that PowerPoint stylized in that similar way, so if we just start from what Kayla built, then we have, like Ian said, we build on that 4-pager or whatever, and then a PowerPoint, and you guys can take what pieces you need or want, right? Like when we all do this together to present. But I think we'll just have I think it's great.
Kevin and Ann, do you want us to narrow down which groups we think we should be trying to get appointments with first? Or is that something you guys feel comfortable doing?
I'm comfortable with doing that, Anna.
Yeah, I am too. Okay. I think an email note individually out to each one, talking about what the committee would like to do over the next few weeks, and that we're inviting them to be part of this venture with us. I think we'll solicit their interest in what we're doing because it's benefiting all the children in the community. And so I think we can make some inroads there.
Great. Any last thoughts?
I love the brochure. I think it's beautiful.
Me too.
Good stuff.
All right.
Thank you.
Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate you being here, and we'll schedule another meeting. I'll be in touch with Kara. Actually, I'll be in touch with each of you to talk about your availability. All right.
What do you call it? Kate, why don't we're all here. Do you want to set it up for next Thursday so we keep the momentum going? Rather than just waste time, later on if we're all here.
The 25th works for me if it works for you guys.
I just picked Thursday, just that it was a week from now, but is that okay with everybody?
It's not okay with me, but I'll have my assignment done.
But will you be able to have Mr. Washington and Courtney? Is that a good time for them?
Yes, I'll make it work.
Could we do a half an hour earlier? That's Danbury Works that night. We're talking about equity and the whole COVID-19 in that discussion. Plus, we're doing a focus group through the Charles Spanish group through Moore Street at 7.
So 5:30 would be okay for you?
We could, yeah, that would be great.
Great.
Would it be Kate? Could it be moved to the next Thursday?
So that's the 4th of March there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see why not. I mean, I think some of this communication can happen via email too.
Yeah.
Is that okay with everybody else here?
Yeah.
If we wait till
Are we saying we're not going to meet next week, but meet on the 4th?
Yes, I think that's what we're trying to do.
Fine with me.
And
so
again, that does not preclude us trying to work out some of these details offline. So,
right.
Okay.
Sorry, Kevin.
So Courtney, Ann, and I will look to expand the PowerPoint so it's more appropriate for the presentation itself, and we'll fine tune the one pager So the one pager could still be available as a one-page document to leave behind. But in terms of a presentation, it'd probably be more like 5 to 8 pages. We'll condense Courtney's overall big PowerPoint, and we'll make sure the themes are consistent to the one pager and make it look good and hopefully get folks' attention.
That would be great. Thank you. And in the meantime, we'll do our work, translating all this stuff and coming back to the group ready to share that information.
Yeah, and I also shared your feedback about the videos. And so, Kate, and so Ann had some suggestions. So we'll circle back together with that piece too and be ready to talk to people about that next time.
And I'm available whenever you guys want to talk about that. Just give me a heads up. I'm happy to have a phone conversation.
Okay. Oh, great. So we'll take you up on that, Kate.
Sounds good.
Yeah, we'll take you up on that. Thank you so much.
All right. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I make a motion. Oh, go ahead. I make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
I'll second. Yep.
Thank you, Rich. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.